Hey, what's up everyone, and welcome to today's video. This episode will guide you through the issues of the Uncanny X-Men published by Marvel Comics in 1977. Issue number 103. For the most part of his young life, for as long as he can remember, the mutant called Nightcrawler has been shunned, stared at, and even hated on. People have even hunted him down trying to kill him. The deformities in his body, caused by the mutations in his genes, have made his interactions with society harder than that of the average human being. Yellow eyes, sharp fangs and pointy ears, deformed hands and feet, and blue fur all over his body and a pointy tail make him look like a demon out of hell. But in reality, Kurt Wagner is quite possibly one of the kindest souls to walk the face of the earth. At this point in time, he is being carried by a group of people who have lived in secrecy in the castle at Cassidy Keep in Ireland, hiding from society at large. This group of people, like Kurt, have been born different than the average human being as well. During an ambush orchestrated by the Juggernaut and Black Tom Cassidy, Kurt got knocked out, after which he got picked up and rescued by these little pointy-eared beings. Lucky for him, because the rest of his fellow X-Men are as good as dead. What was supposed to be a well-earned vacation at Sean Cassidy, the team member Banshee's ancestral home, turned out to be a trap set up by Black Tom. Caught by surprise, the X-Men were beaten quite easily. As Kurt is about to regain his consciousness, the little men realize that they need to make Kurt keep quiet, because if he starts yelling out, they will get found out. They keep carrying Kurt while trying to hold him, but it's no use. Kurt swings his arm and fist, still thinking that he's in a fight with the Juggernaut, and as he's trying to clear his head, he gets confused by the sight of these little men and figures he must be dreaming. He is actually standing face to face with the leprechauns. And as shocked as he is by this realization, he starts getting worried about his friends and teammates and asks the men what happened to them. But the answer he's looking for doesn't come from them at all, but from Eamon O'Donnell. The same guy who basically left the X-Men straight in the hands of Black Tom and the Juggernaut. O'Donnell then tells Nightcrawler that after years of keeping the family safe at Cassidy Keep, he too fell victim by the arrival of Black Tom. Eamon's own friends are in the same kind of danger as Kurt's are. He then starts explaining to Kurt what had happened about a month ago, when Black Tom returned to the castle with his partner in crime, the Juggernaut. With brute force, they captured most of the families and held them hostage, using them to be able to blackmail Eamon, because if Eamon did not follow Black Tom's commands, their lives would be at stake. Eamon soon found out that Black Tom was not the mastermind behind this plan, because even Tom was taking orders from someone else, namely a tall guy in a red armor with a horned helmet. Eamon did try to send a warning to the family's lawyer Flaherty, but he misunderstood. The lawyer thought that Black Tom was after the possession of the castle, his cousin, the Banshee's inheritance, but in fact, all that Black Tom was really after was the Banshee's life. And as a matter of fact, all of the X-Men's lives. After hearing Eamon's story, Kurt does have an idea as to who this figure in red armor is, but first they need to figure out a plan to rescue his friends. Kurt then gets told what happened to him when he was lying unconscious, how the part of his body which lay in the shadows seemed to have disappeared, and Kurt seems as confused by this as the little men are. He tells them that his powers do not work like that, and that he cannot disappear like that, but the guy who told Nightcrawler this is very convinced that's exactly what happened, So Kurt sticks out his arm and finds out a trait of his mutation which he had never realized before. He actually does disappear wherever there is little light. Kurt then crawls on the walls covered with shadows and asks Eamon if he can still see him. Only Kurt's eyes are still visible, and even though Eamon can still feel Kurt's body, he is not able to see it anymore, which he finds quite spooky. They then get approached by one of the leprechauns who tells them to hurry, because Black Tom has taken the X-Men to the laboratory and is planning on torturing them. Kurt instantly steps out of the shadows and startles the little guy, and asks him to show him the way to this laboratory. But Eamon tells Kurt to follow him and he will be there in no time, and hopefully not too late. When they arrive at the laboratory, Kurt is shocked to see what has happened to his friends. Eamon knows exactly how Nightcrawler feels, because his friends, the leprechaun families, are all being held captive in the dungeons right behind this place. As they eavesdrop and spy from outside the laboratory, they can hear Black Tom telling the Juggernaut not to worry about the Nightcrawler having escaped. According to Tom, it doesn't matter, and there's nothing Nightcrawler can do by himself, especially with the other X-Men's powers having been neutralized. They are quite simply rendered helpless. Tom says that once he will have his neuronic tangler glove activated, they can begin their work here. And as Tom activates the glove, the Juggernaut tells him they won't be needing that fancy glove of his if he wants to hurt his stepbrother, Professor Xavier's pupils, because he has the power to do just that, and more. Black Tom then tells the Juggernaut to hold his ground, because this is one instance where brute force is not the answer, that human bodies have a limit of physical force they can stand, and that Kane Marco's way would probably kill these X-Men long before they have served their purpose. This glove, however, ravages the mind, yet leaves the body undamaged. It will give them a never-ending agony, and Charles Xavier will do anything to spare his pupils that kind of pain. Charles Xavier would even let them kill him in exchange for the safety of his pupils. Hearing the two villains talk about this gives Nightcrawler an idea. A risky one though, and he tells Eamon to, if it doesn't work out, have his corpse be sent out to Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, and he teleports away. Accompanied by the smell of fire and brimstone, it seems that Professor Xavier has now arrived in the laboratory, surprising both Juggernaut and Black Tom. Xavier tells his stepbrother that if he wanted to see him, he could have just asked, instead of threatening his students. Juggernaut immediately starts charging at Xavier, telling him that he's wrong, that they didn't just want to see him, but that all Tom and him want from Xavier is his life. And right before the Juggernaut smashes into Xavier, his wheelchair-bound stepbrother manages to move himself out of the way, causing the Juggernaut to crash into the instruments behind Xavier. Xavier immediately starts taunting the Juggernaut, telling him that he must be getting slow at his old age, and asks him if that's why he needed help to ambush the X-Men this time around. The Juggernaut gets even more angry than he already was, for being laughed at, and Xavier pours it on even more by telling him that there's so much of him to laugh at. Juggernaut tries to punch Xavier, telling him to shut up, but again, Xavier moves out of the way in an acrobatic fashion. Black Tom tells his partner in crime that there has to be something wrong here, since Juggernaut told him that Xavier was a cripple, and he himself then gets kicked in the stomach by Xavier. While positioned on the floor, Black Tom uses his cane and blasts it at Xavier, who's still jumping around, and then sticks to one of the walls. And then it hits the Juggernaut. This is not his stepbrother at all, but regardless what he looks like, this has got to be Nightcrawler instead. He tries to strike him again, but all he hits is the outer wall of the laboratory, and the force he used was so massive that it even shatters the granite cliff surrounding it. Storm, who had been incapacitated by traumatic claustrophobia, even more by that than by the shackles she had been bound in by Black Tom, can now see the skies, which act like quite literally a breath of fresh air to her. And within a moment's time, she instantly uses her weather manipulating powers to create a hurricane inside the laboratory, freeing all the other X-Men, save one as well. All of them riding the wind until they are outside of the castle. But the Banshee is still inside. He got grabbed by the Juggernaut. Wolverine asks Storm to put him and Colossus down on the ground again, and she does so, but not in the gentlest of ways. Storm is still up in the air, making all kinds of maneuvers, rejoicing in the fact that she's able to fly around freely again. Wolverine tells Colossus that Storm has become pretty unreliable and points at her, telling Colossus to just look at her and calls her a broad. Colossus tells Wolverine that she's just happy and to not call her a broad ever again. In the meantime, back inside the laboratory, where the walls have come tumbling down, the leprechauns are trying to find their way out of this mess caused by the hurricane Storm created. They sneak silently right past Black Tom and the Juggernaut. Tom berates Kane for his temper, because if he had not cut loose like this, the X-Men would still be their prisoners. Kane tells him that he knows and that he's sorry, but they still have the Banshee captive. The leprechauns then find Nightcrawler, again knocked out cold, but this time around buried in debris. If they find out that he's still alive, they will do their best to save him again. Outside the castle, Wolverine asks Colossus to help him out with getting rid of these massive metal boots he had got put on him to keep him secured. Colossus, trying as hard as he can, tells Wolverine that it is no use. They are made of a type of metal that even he cannot break. Storm interrupts them, asking if maybe she can help out. Wolverine asks her what she thinks she can do, if Colossus can't even break them. But before he can finish his sentence, she simply opens up the boots with little force, freeing Wolverine from his shackles. Storm explains to them how she was known as the best lockpick in all of Cairo when she was younger, but she will tell them all about that later, after they have rescued their friends. Meanwhile, inside the castle, Black Tom and the Juggernaut, who is carrying the unconscious Banshee, have arrived at the door which will lead them to the castle's battlements outside. When Juggernaut asks Tom why they brought the Banshee all the way up here and if he's planning to throw his cousin off, Tom responds that he will if it comes to that, but first they will try talking. And he hollers at the X-Men standing below. He tells them that if they want their teammate back alive, they will have to make their way through the castle and come get him, but they only have 5 minutes to do so, or they will start sending Banshee down to them, piece by piece. The X-Men know this is a trap, of course. But what else can they do in this situation but walk right into it? And Colossus wonders what will happen to Nightcrawler. They cannot just stand there and watch. Storm lifts herself up with the conjured up wind and tells the others that if Black Tom and Juggernaut want a fight, they will get one. Wolverine starts yelling at her, telling her to come back, and that charging at them all by herself will surely get herself killed. And he once again calls her a broad. And as Wolverine starts wondering how they are supposed to follow her, he gets grabbed from behind by Colossus, who tells him that he had told him before to not call her a broad anymore, and he meant every word of it. He picks him up and then throws Wolverine, launching him right to the roof of the castle. Colossus himself then digs his fingertips into the walls of the castle and starts scaling them. Juggernaut and Black Tom can see what Colossus is doing, and while Storm is being fired at by the energy blasters which are mounted on the top of the castle's turrets, she does her best to put her training in the danger room to use and tries to evade the barrage of attacks. All the while the Juggernaut starts tearing up the castle and throws the biggest chunks of rocks he can get his hands on, aiming for Colossus. Storm wants to help her teammate, but she has to take care of these blasters before she can even try and help Colossus out. So she starts manipulating the weather for miles around her and creates the worst Atlantic gale anyone has ever seen. On the other side of the castle, where he ended up after getting thrown by Colossus, Wolverine is getting frustrated. How is he supposed to be helping out all the way out there? He is being joined by one of the leprechauns, who tells Wolverine he might be able to help him out and addresses him by his real name Logan. This shocks Wolverine, because not only doesn't he believe in leprechauns, but he's always made sure to keep his real name a secret. When he asks how the leprechaun knows his real name, he gets told by him that leprechauns know a lot of things. Wolverine isn't buying this explanation at all, and the leprechaun tells him to suit himself, and that maybe leprechauns don't believe in talking to Wolverines either. And as he runs off, he asks Wolverine if he's joining him or not. In the meantime, Juggernaut and Black Tom are both trying to hit Storm. Juggernaut is throwing big chunks of rock at her, and Black Tom is making sure the battle computers which are controlling the energy weapons are compensating for Storm's speed and maneuverability. Eventually, she will get caught. And the Banshee is right there with them, still tied up and with his mouth being covered. All he can do for now is stand there and watch as his friends get murdered. But luckily, from out of the shadows he gets help from Nightcrawler, who gets shown the way up to where they are by the leprechauns, and he unties Banshee's arms. They do get found out by the two villains, and Tom tells Juggernaut to stop him before it's too late. But Banshee is now able to free himself from the sonic gag which was covering his mouth. And as Juggernaut is charging at the Banshee and Nightcrawler, Sean uses his sonic scream to destroy the floor underneath Juggernaut's feet, and he falls through the floor. And as he drops down, Juggernaut tells Banshee that he's a fool if he thinks his fall will stop him. He threatens them by saying that all he has done is put off their deaths for the time being, just for as long as it takes for him to climb up the stairs again. But the Juggernaut will not be climbing those stairs again. Not if Colossus, Storm and Wolverine can help it. They have just arrived there as well and demand a rematch. Juggernaut asks them what makes them think a fight will end any different this time around. All these X-Men have done with this confrontation is sign their death warrants. And outside, after having dealt with Juggernaut's attack, Banshee chases after his cousin Black Tom, which is exactly what Tom wants him to do, because he has a trap lined up. Tom grabs an axe right behind the door and tries to hit Banshee with it, but Banshee is not that stupid and simply moves out of the way of the attack. He grabs himself a sword off the wall, and the two cousins now engage in a duel. Both being aware of the fact that they can't hurt one another with their powers, all they can do is attack each other physically. And as they swing at one another, the X-Men and the Juggernaut slam through a wall as well, catching the Banshee off guard. With Sean now lying on the ground and Tom standing over him, Tom starts mocking Sean as he holds the axe over his head to deliver the final blow to his cousin. But Banshee grabs a hold of the battlements on both of his sides and uses his feet to pivot himself and Black Tom over the edge. And where Banshee manages to hold on, Black Tom plummets along the steep cliff and into the Atlantic Ocean. The Juggernaut, who is still in the middle of the fight with the other X-Men, sees this happen and jumps right after his partner in crime, the only friend he truly ever had. And as he's falling downward, he tells the X-Men that if they have killed Black Tom, he will make them all pay. And as soon as he hits the water, he is instantly gone, swallowed up by the surf, risking his life in a desperate attempt to try and save his friend. Storm then reverts the weather back to the way it was, and the X-Men search all day, but they do not find any trace of Juggernaut or Black Tom. No trace and no bodies. This battle seems to be over, for now. Or is it? Because somewhere else, an interstellar communication is taking place. A communication between Eric the Red and his superior. His superior is not content with the results of Eric the Red's manipulation so far. Not at all. And he will not allow any more failures. He says that Princess Narimani is due to reach the Earth in a matter of weeks, and whatever happens then, she must not get into contact with the X-Men, no matter what. And Eric the Red gives this man his word. He will make sure that this will not happen. He has now gotten into contact with an ally who is actually worthy of that name. An ally who will make sure that Xavier and his X-Men will be dead before they even realize they are under attack. And this ally is the X-Men's oldest and deadliest foe. Thanks for watching this video and I hope you enjoyed it. You can help growing this channel by liking, subscribing and sharing. This tells YouTube that the videos I'm making should be recommended to others and would be very much appreciated. See you next episode.